The Russia-Ukraine war, which erupted in February 2022, marked a profound turning point in global geopolitics, compelling major powers to reassess their foreign policies. China's stance, in particular, has drawn significant attention as it occupies a unique position at the intersection of economic influence and diplomatic power. As a global economic giant and a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, China's role in shaping the trajectory of this conflict has implications far beyond the immediate war zone. China's approach to the conflict reflects a blend of strategic, economic, and diplomatic considerations. Its carefully calibrated actions and statements underscore its effort to balance competing interests while maintaining its vision for a multipolar global order. By analyzing Beijing's official statements, its deepening ties with Russia, and its balancing act with Western powers, we gain a nuanced understanding of how China navigates this complex and evolving crisis. In exploring China's stance on this war, it becomes evident that Beijing's approach is rooted in a combination of strategic, economic, and diplomatic considerations. By delving into China's official statements, its growing ties with Russia, and its balancing act with the West, we aim to provide a nuanced perspective on how this influential nation navigates the complexities of the ongoing crisis. Understanding China's neutrality. China's proclaimed neutrality in the Russia-Ukraine conflict has been a cornerstone of its official stance. Beijing consistently advocates for dialogue and negotiation, urging both parties to pursue peaceful resolutions. Chinese officials underline their commitment to respecting the sovereignty and territorial integrity of all nations, a principle deeply embedded in China's foreign policy framework. This rhetoric positions China as a promoter of global stability and a mediator amidst tensions. However, this neutrality carries layers of ambiguity. While Beijing refrains from endorsing Russia's military actions, it also avoids outright condemnation, opting instead to stress the complex historical and geopolitical factors that underpin the conflict. This selective narrative aligns with China's broader critique of Western policies, which it often views as contributing to instability. China's calls for peace are not purely altruistic. By presenting itself as a neutral party, Beijing aims to bolster its image as a leader advocating for a multipolar world, a vision where no single power dominates global governance. This positioning resonates with many nations in the global south, which often share China's skepticism of Western hegemony. China's economic ties with Russia. The economic dimension of China's relationship with Russia has become increasingly significant, particularly in the wake of Western sanctions. Over the past decade, Beijing and Moscow have cultivated closer ties, driven by shared geopolitical objectives and economic complementarities. The war has accelerated this trend as Russia looks eastward to mitigate the impact of its economic isolation. China's imports of Russian energy, ranging from crude oil to natural gas, have surged, providing Moscow with much-needed revenue while offering Beijing access to resources at discounted rates. Beyond energy, agricultural products such as wheat and seafood from Russia have found a growing market in China, underscoring the mutual benefits of their economic interdependence. This economic partnership is not without strategic implications. By strengthening trade relations, China gains leverage over Russia, ensuring a degree of influence in Moscow's decision-making. Simultaneously, these ties shield China from potential economic shocks, offering a buffer against global disruptions. Navigating a geopolitical tightrope. China's approach to the Russia-Ukraine war reflects its efforts to balance competing priorities. While its relationship with Russia is vital for countering Western influence, Beijing remains acutely aware of the importance of its economic and diplomatic ties with Europe and the United States. In its diplomatic engagements, China treads carefully to avoid alienating the West. For instance, it has abstained from UN resolutions critical of Russia while opposing unilateral sanctions. This duality allows Beijing to signal support for Moscow without crossing lines that might provoke retaliatory actions from Western nations. At the same time, China's narrative seeks to shift blame for the conflict toward NATO and the United States. This messaging, amplified through state-controlled media and international forums, frames Beijing as a neutral arbiter advocating for peace. Such portrayals are particularly effective in regions like Africa and Southeast Asia, where skepticism of Western policies runs high. Broader implications for global politics. The Russia-Ukraine war underscores the evolving dynamics of the Russia-China partnership. Economically, their collaboration has deepened, with trade reaching unprecedented levels. Strategically, they share a vision of challenging US-led alliances and promoting a multipolar world order. Yet differences persist. Beijing is wary of being overly entangled in Moscow's conflicts, recognizing the potential risks to its global standing. China's efforts to mediate the conflict further highlight its ambitions on the world stage. In 2023, Beijing proposed a 12-point peace plan emphasizing ceasefire and dialogue. While met with skepticism in Western capitals, this initiative underscores China's desire to position itself as a global peacemaker. However, questions about its neutrality persist, given its reluctance to critique Russia and its deepening economic ties with Moscow. The war also illuminates the growing divide between the global North and South. Many developing nations view China's stance as pragmatic, contrasting it with what they perceive as Western partisanship. This dynamic bolsters Beijing's influence, particularly in regions like Africa and Latin America, where narratives of Western double standards resonate deeply. Domestic considerations. Shaping policy, China's stance on the Russia-Ukraine war is informed by domestic imperatives. Economic stability remains a top priority, particularly as Beijing navigates challenges such as post-pandemic recovery and slowing growth. The conflict's impact on global supply chains and energy prices poses risks to China's economic ambitions, prompting a cautious approach. The Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, a cornerstone of China's global strategy, also factors into its calculations. The war complicates BRI projects in regions adjacent to the conflict, highlighting the interconnectedness of geopolitical tensions and economic strategies. To address these challenges, China has sought to diversify trade routes and deepen partnerships beyond Europe. Domestically, public opinion is shaped by state narratives that emphasize Western culpability in the conflict. This framing not only aligns with Beijing's broader geopolitical messaging, but also reinforces its domestic legitimacy. By controlling public discourse, the Chinese government ensures alignment between its foreign policy objectives and public sentiment. Challenges and criticisms. China's approach to the Russia-Ukraine war has not been without controversy. Western nations have criticized Beijing's ambiguity, accusing it of enabling Russian aggression through continued trade and diplomatic support. US and European officials have warned China against providing military assistance to Russia, emphasizing severe repercussions for crossing this red line. Critics also point to contradictions in China's stance. While Beijing champions sovereignty and territorial integrity, its reluctance to condemn Russia's invasion raises questions about its commitment to these principles. This inconsistency is particularly striking given China's own territorial concerns, such as Taiwan. Despite advocating for peace, China has faced criticism for offering few tangible steps toward conflict resolution. Its calls for dialogue, while well received in some quarters, are seen by others as insufficient. These perceptions challenge Beijing's efforts to position itself as a credible mediator. Conclusion. China's position on the Russia-Ukraine war encapsulates a complex interplay of strategic interests, economic priorities, and geopolitical aspirations. By maintaining a stance of cautious neutrality, Beijing seeks to balance its alliance with Russia against its broader global ambitions. This approach has enabled China to navigate the crisis without significant repercussions, while simultaneously asserting its influence on the world stage. As the war continues, China's actions will remain pivotal in shaping its trajectory and the broader contours of international politics. Whether Beijing can sustain its balancing act or face mounting pressures to take a definitive stance will be a defining question in the years ahead.